Ma'am, I lost Daddy in the snow. Have you ever heard 4 words that changed everything? That December night, a shy girl working the graveyard shift found something behind the dumpster that would unravel a 5-year-old secret and lead her straight into the company that destroyed her family. This is her story. And it's more heartwarming than you might expect. Brianna Hart pulled her thin coat tighter as she locked the convenience store. 26 years old, brown hair tucked under a worn knit hat, she'd just finished another 11-hour shift. The kind where customers barely looked at her face. She was invisible, the shy girl nobody remembered the night clerk people walked past without a second glance. The December wind screamed across the empty parking lot. She should have gone straight to her car. But then she heard it, a child's sob. Faint. Desperate. Brianna's flashlight caught something pink against the snow. Tiny shoes. A little girl no more than 7 curled behind the dumpster, lips turning blue. Without thinking, Brianna dropped to her knees. Her hands moved with precision, cradling the child's neck, checking breathing, warming frozen fingers. Old training from the nursing program she'd abandoned when her mother died. "I've got you, sweetheart," Brianna whispered, lifting the trembling girl. "You're safe now." The child's voice cracked. "I lost Daddy in the snow. Everything disappeared." Brianna knew that kind of loss. But right now, this inspirational moment wasn't about her pain, it was about saving this life. Inside, Brianna wrapped an emergency blanket around the shivering child. That's when she spotted the name embroidered on the coat, Aurora Everett. Her hands froze. Everett, as in Evergrid Everett, the company whose logo haunted Brianna's nightmares. The door slammed open. A man stormed in, tall, expensive coat, face carved with panic. Grayson Everett, the CEO, the man whose company killed her mother. He stopped when he saw his daughter in Brianna's arms. Their eyes met. Relief, fear, recognition of shared pain. "Don't ever," his voice broke. "Thank you for keeping her warm." As he lifted Aurora away, Brianna saw it, the way his hands shook, how he held his daughter like she might vanish. This powerful man was drowning too. And somehow Brianna knew this wasn't chance. This was fate circling back. What neither realized was that their mothers had once stood side by side on a factory floor, and that truth would shatter everything. Brianna's apartment was freezing when she got home. 1 bedroom, peeling wallpaper, a hot plate instead of a stove. On the dresser sat a photograph, her mother Margaret Hart smiling in an Evergrid uniform. Brianna touched the glass. "When you're scared, baby." Her mother's voice echoed. "Find the smallest light. It's always enough." But that light died 5 years ago, during a night shift at an Evergrid plant. Her mother was crushed by faulty equipment quietly replaced, the incident buried. No investigation, no accountability. Just a condolence letter and a check that barely covered the funeral. Brianna had spent years trying to get someone to listen. No one ever did. The shy girl with no power might as well have been shouting into a hurricane. She pulled a shoebox from under her bed. Inside, incident reports from public records. Witness statements leading nowhere, and a USB drive labeled Shift Log 12-14-19, Mrs. Cora, her mother's friend, had given it to her before she died. "The truth is the only light that doesn't fade, honey," Cora had whispered. "When the time comes, you'll know what to do." Brianna turned the drive over in her palm. She hadn't known what to do with it. Until tonight. Until a little girl named Aurora looked up at her with eyes that understood loss. Across town, Grayson Everett sat in his daughter's doorway. Aurora was finally asleep, her small chest rising and falling beneath glow-in-the-dark stars. Her fingers clutched a worn rabbit, the last gift his wife Emily had given her. Grayson's jaw tightened. 3 years since the snowstorm took Emily. She'd been driving home from volunteer work when her car slid into a ravine. By the time they found her, it was too late. He'd built walls after that, worked 18-hour days, controlled every variable, kept Aurora close, maybe too close. Because if he managed everything, nothing else could be stolen. But tonight he'd failed. He'd turned his back for 30 seconds at the holiday market, and Aurora wandered off, suddenly gone, swallowed by the storm. And then that woman, Brianna, the way she'd held Aurora, gentle but certain, like she'd done it 1,000 times. Grayson pulled out his phone, accessing Evergrid's employee database. Brianna Hart, age 26, night shift, Route 9, convenience, education, 1-year nursing, incomplete, no prior Evergrid employment, but something about her face nagged at him. Aurora stirred. "Daddy, don't lose me like you lost Mommy." Grayson walked to the window before tears could come. CEOs didn't cry, but sometimes he wondered if that made him less human or just more broken. Next morning, Brianna was restocking when the door chimed. Grayson Everett stood in the doorway looking out of place in his tailored coat. Aurora peeked from behind his leg. "I wanted to apologize. For last night, I didn't handle that well." Brianna's heart hammered. "You don't need to apologize, Mr. Everett. I'm just glad Aurora is okay. You kept her calm when I was falling apart. You knew exactly what to do." His gaze sharpened. "That instinct, most people don't have that." She shrugged. "I just stayed with her. That's everything." His voice softened. "We're looking for someone to coordinate our employee family support program. Part-time. You'd be exceptional at it. Work for Evergrid, the company that killed her mother." But then Aurora smiled, small, shy, hopeful, so heartwarming it made Brianna's chest ache. "I'll think about it." As they left, Aurora waved. Grayson paused at the door. "Thank you, truly." After they left, Brianna stood alone, staring at her reflection. For the first time in 5 years, something shifted inside her chest. Something like purpose. Maybe this was how she'd get the truth. Not by shouting from outside, but by walking into the lion's den with eyes wide open. Little did she know the lion was just as broken, and the truth waiting would prove that even the shyest girl can become the most inspirational force for change. Brianna accepted the position 3 days later. It was supposed to be simple, a few hours weekly, organizing care packages, staying invisible like always. But 3 weeks in, everything changed. It was a Friday afternoon. Evergrid's main office hosted a year-end safety seminar. Grayson brought Aurora because her nanny was sick. Brianna was setting up the children's activity corner. Then the fire alarm screamed. Chaos erupted. Employees rushed toward exits. Brianna scanned the crowd for the small figure in pink. Gone. Aurora. Grayson's voice cut through raw with panic. "Aurora, where are you?" Brianna's training kicked in. She didn't run toward exits. She ran against the current, checking rooms' closets. Then she heard it. A faint whimper. The walk-in supply freezer door ajar. Brianna yanked it open. Aurora was curled behind boxes, shaking violently, lips pale, breathing shallow. "Hey, sweetheart. Look at me." Brianna dropped down instantly, calm and capable. She wrapped her cardigan around the girl, rubbing warmth into small hands. Checked pulse, fast, but steady. "You're safe. I'm right here." Aurora's voice broke. The alarm. It sounded like the night when Mommy got lost in the snow too. Brianna pulled Aurora close, rocking gently. "I know how scary that feels, but I found you. You're not lost." Heavy footsteps pounded down the hall. Grayson appeared and froze. His daughter. safe, in a stranger's arms, but not a stranger anymore. Brianna looked up, eyes wet. She's okay, Mr. Everett. Just cold and scared. Grayson sank to his knees beside them, hand hovering over Aurora's hair, trembling. Then he looked at Brianna, really looked. How did you know where to find her? I just knew. Her voice barely audible. Because I know what it's like to be lost, to be the one everyone walks past. Something profound passed between them. Recognition. Understanding. Grayson helped Aurora up, but his gaze stayed on Brianna. Come to my office, please. There's something I need to say. An hour later, Brianna sat across from Grayson in his glass-walled office. The city stretched below gray and cold. He poured tea with still shaking hands. You saved her, again. His voice quiet. I don't know how to thank you. Mr. Everett. Brianna's voice cut through sharper than intended. Her hands shook too from years of buried rage and grief demanding to be heard. She reached into her bag, pulled out the USB drive. She slid it across the desk. There's something you need to see. Something from 5 years ago at one of your facilities. Something someone tried very hard to make sure you'd never know. Grayson frowned. What is this, the truth? He plugged it in. The screen filled with grainy footage timestamp December 14th, 2019, 10:47 p.m. Evergrid processing plant at 7, night shift workers. And there, Brianna's mother, Margaret Hart, checking gauges, writing notes. Grayson's face went pale, because walking into frame carrying water and sandwiches, smiling at Margaret, was his wife, Emily. No. Brianna's voice shook. Your wife volunteered at the plant that winter. Evergrid was understaffed because of budget cuts. Emily organized community support. She and my mother became friends. The footage continued. Emily handing Margaret water, the two women laughing, then the timestamp jumped. 11:47 p.m. Warning lights flashing, alarms, workers scattering, Margaret pinned beneath a hydraulic press. Emily running toward her, screaming for help. The screen went black. Grayson sat frozen. She tried to save her, Brianna whispered, tears streaming. Your wife tried to save my mother, but the equipment failed, emergency protocols disabled to meet production quotas. 6 weeks later, your wife... She couldn't finish. Grayson's hands covered his face. I didn't know. Emily never told me she was there. I didn't know, neither did I. Not until Mrs. Cora gave me this. She said someone in your company buried the reports. Made my mother's death look like an accident instead of negligence. Grayson looked up, eyes red. Who? The office door burst open. Jenna Collins, Evergrid's HR director, strode in concern, masking calculating eyes. Grayson, thank God. I heard about Aurora. Is she... She stopped seeing Brianna. Her expression flickered. Miss Hart, I didn't realize you were still here. Grayson stood slowly. Jenna, what do you know about plant number 7, December 2019? Jenna's smile tightened. That was years ago. Why? Answer the question. Something cold slid behind Jenna's eyes. She glanced at the USB drive. I see. Her voice turned ice. Mr. Everett, Miss Hart has been under investigation for inappropriate conduct. She removed your daughter from a secure area without authorization. We have footage. That's a lie. Brianna shot to her feet. Grayson's jaw clenched. Show me this footage. Jenna pulled out her tablet. Here, Miss Hart entering the freezer. And checking the hallway as if... Stop. Grayson's voice carried absolute authority. He opened his laptop, accessing Evergrid's full security system. The real footage appeared. Jenna, in the basement, pulling the fire alarm manually, then deleting files from the safety database. Timestamp 18 minutes before the alarm. Grayson's face turned to stone. You staged this, triggered the alarm to cover evidence deletion. When Brianna found Aurora, you tried to frame her. I was protecting this company. Jenna's composure cracked. Those old reports would have destroyed us. Lawsuits, investigations. I did what I had to do. Get out. Grayson, Iuna, security. 2 guards appeared. Escort Ms. Collins out. Confiscate everything. Call our legal team. We're launching a full criminal investigation. As security led Jenna away, silence fell. Brianna stood, trembling, tears streaming. I didn't come for revenge, she whispered. I just wanted the truth. For both of us. Grayson looked at her, guilt, grief unbearable, knowing in his eyes. Our families were connected, and I never knew. Neither did I. 2 broken people realized they'd been circling the same wound for years, finally ready to let truth begin its painful work of healing. The investigation moved with brutal efficiency. Within 48 hours, Grayson had assembled an independent audit team, former federal safety inspectors, forensic accountants with reputations for ruthless honesty, corporate attorneys who specialized in exposing fraud. What they uncovered made Brianna physically ill. Plant No. 7 wasn't an isolated incident. Over 6 years, Jenna Collins had systematically buried 17 workplace accidents. She'd disabled automated safety alerts to inflate efficiency reports, falsified injury logs, intimidated workers into signing NDAs, all to meet quarterly profit targets and secure substantial performance bonuses tied to maintaining a clean safety record. 17 families, 17 cover-ups, 17 lives deemed acceptable losses. Margaret Hart's death was just one name on a list that should never have existed. Grayson called an emergency company-wide meeting for Thursday morning. Every Evergrid employee packed into the headquarters auditorium. Brianna stood in the back row, heart-hammering, trying to disappear into the crowd. Grayson found her immediately. His gaze locked on hers across hundreds of people, a silent acknowledgement of what was about to happen. He stepped to the podium, and the room fell silent. 5 years ago, he began, a woman named Margaret Hart died in one of our facilities. Her death was officially ruled an industrial accident. It was filed away, forgotten by everyone except the people who loved her. The silence deepened. But it wasn't an accident. It was negligence, a systematic failure of leadership, a culture that valued quarterly earnings over human lives, and it was deliberately covered up by someone I trusted. He paused, knuckles white against the podium's edge. Margaret Hart was a devoted mother, a reliable employee, and she died because I failed to see what was happening in the company I inherited, because I trusted the wrong people and didn't ask the right questions. Brianna's vision blurred with tears. My wife Emily was at that facility the night Margaret died. She'd organized a volunteer program because we were dangerously understaffed. She tried to save Margaret. She stayed with her until the end. And 6 weeks later, Emily died too in a car accident during a snowstorm driving home from more volunteer work. Grayson's voice cracked. I've spent 3 years running from that pain, controlling everything because I couldn't control what mattered, trusting no one. But a few weeks ago, someone showed me that the only way forward is through the truth, no matter the cost. He looked directly at Brianna. Margaret Hart's daughter is here today. Brianna Hart. She didn't come seeking money or fame. She didn't want revenge, though God knows she had every right to. She came because she believed, despite everything this company took from her, that we could be better. Chatusto. Every head turned. Hundreds of eyes found Brianna, who forced herself to stand tall. So today, I'm announcing the following changes effective immediately. Every workplace incident in Evergrid's history will be reinvestigated by an independent third party. 2. We're implementing a zero-tolerance policy for safety violations. No production quota, no profit target, no executive bonus will ever supersede worker protection again. 3. We're immediately reducing mandatory shift hours and doubling safety staffing across all facilities. The room erupted in whispers. And 4. We're establishing the Hart Everett Safety Trust, a foundation dedicated to supporting families affected by workplace negligence not just at Evergrid, but across the entire energy sector. Funded by 20% of my personal salary and matching contributions from our executive team. Permanently. Absolute silence followed. Then someone started clapping. Another joined. Then another. The entire auditorium rose in thunderous applause. Brianna stood frozen tears pouring down her face as hundreds of strangers applauded not for her, but for the mother who'd never gotten justice. Until now. Grayson walked down the center aisle until he stood directly in front of her. "I can't bring her back," he said quietly, tears falling. "But I can make sure her death changes everything, that it means something, that it saves lives." She would have liked that. Brianna's voice broke. "I'm doing this because it's right," Grayson said, "but also because of you. Because you're the bravest person I've ever met. Because you refused to let your mother be forgotten." He offered his hand not as a CEO to an employee, but as one broken person to another. Brianna took it, and something fundamental shifted. For the first time in 5 years, she felt her mother's light flicker back to life inside her chest. Later that evening, Brianna was gathering her belongings from her small office. She'd accomplished what she came to do. The truth was out. Justice was happening. It was time to leave. A soft knock made her turn. Grayson stood in the doorway looking uncertain, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. "You're leaving?" he asked. She nodded. "Brianna." He stepped inside, closing the door. "What if I asked you to stay?" "Mr. Everett, Grayson," he interrupted softly. "Please." "Grayson," she repeated. "I finished what I came to do. I'm not talking about the foundation." He took a breath. "I'm asking you to stay as a permanent part of the safety oversight team. You understand what's at stake better than anyone. And..." He hesitated. "I trust you. I haven't trusted anyone in 3 years. I don't know if I can walk through these doors every day and not see her." "I know." His voice was rough. "I see Emily everywhere too. But maybe we're not supposed to forget them. Maybe we're supposed to carry them forward. Maybe that's how we honor them. Together." Before Brianna could respond, small footsteps echoed in the hallway. Aurora appeared, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Daddy, is Brianna leaving forever?" Grayson crouched down. "I'm trying very hard to convince her to stay, sweetheart." Aurora walked to Brianna and took her hand. "Please don't go. You make Daddy smile. He doesn't smile very much anymore." Brianna knelt beside Aurora. "Sweetheart." "Mommy told me something before she went to heaven," Aurora said seriously. "She said that when you find someone who makes the dark less dark, you're supposed to hold on to them really tight and not let go." Brianna's breath caught. Aurora looked between them. "You both make the dark less dark, so you should stay together. That's what Mommy would want." Brianna looked up at Grayson. He was watching her with hope and terror. "Stay," he said softly. "Not just for the job, not just for the foundation, for this, for us, for whatever this could become." Brianna's carefully constructed walls trembled. Then they fell. "Okay," she whispered. I'll stay. Aurora threw her arms around both of them, pulling them into a hug that felt like the beginning of something fragile and precious. Two families torn apart by the same tragedy were finally finding their way back to each other. And in the space between loss and hope, something new was taking root. Something that looked remarkably like home. The weeks that followed were strange and beautiful. Brianna moved closer to Evergrid headquarters not because Grayson asked, but because she wanted to be close to people who actually saw her. She started full-time with the Safety Oversight Committee, reviewing old incident reports, interviewing former employees too afraid to speak before. It was exhausting. Some days she came home and cried for an hour, but Grayson was always there. A text, a call. Sometimes just sitting in silence, two people who understood healing wasn't linear. Aurora started requesting Brianna's help with homework, bedtime stories, hard questions about her mother that Grayson still struggled to answer. And slowly, something shifted. One Saturday in March, Grayson invited Brianna for lunch. Aurora met her at the door, vibrating with excitement. "We're making pancakes. Daddy said he used to be good, but he's really bad now." The kitchen was a disaster. Flour everywhere, batter dripping. Grayson stood at the stove looking defeated. "I swear I used to be competent," he muttered. Brianna laughed, the first real unguarded laugh he'd heard from her. "Let me help before you burn the house down." They worked side by side, Aurora narrating like a tiny cooking show host. Brianna showed Grayson how to flip without splattering. He showed her where the good Vermont maple syrup was hidden. It was domestic, simple, ordinary, perfect. When they sat down to eat, Aurora suddenly asked, "Brianna, did you know my mommy?" The kitchen went quiet. Brianna glanced at Grayson. He nodded gently. "I didn't know her well," Brianna said carefully, "but I know she was incredibly kind. She helped my mom once during a hard time, made her laugh when everything felt heavy." Aurora's eyes went wide. "Really? Really? I think your mom and my mom would have been close friends if they'd had more time. Do you think they're friends now in heaven?" Grayson's hand found Brianna's under the table. She squeezed back. "Yeah, sweetheart," Brianna whispered. "I think they are. I think they're watching us, happy we found each other." Aurora smiled satisfied and went back to her syrup sculpture. Grayson leaned closer. "Thank you for giving her that." "Thank you," Brianna whispered, "for letting me be part of this. Part of your family." Their eyes met and neither looked away. That evening, after Aurora fell asleep, Grayson walked Brianna to her car. The first March snow was falling, late flurries that wouldn't stick. Brianna tensed, but Grayson gently took her hand. "I used to hate the snow," he admitted, watching flakes drift through streetlight. "After Emily, every time it fell, I felt like I was losing her again." "And now?" Brianna asked. He looked up, snowflakes catching in his hair. "Now I think maybe it's not about what the snow took. Maybe it's about what it brought us." Brianna's heart stuttered. Grayson turned to face her, raw and open. "I don't know how to do this. I haven't let anyone in since Emily died." "Neither do I," Brianna interrupted, matching his vulnerability. "I've been invisible so long I forgot what it felt like to be seen." "You matter," his voice fierce. "I see you, Brianna. Every part." She stepped closer. "I see you too, and I'm not afraid." The snow fell around them, soft and forgiving. "I don't know where this goes," Grayson said quietly, "but I know I want you in my life, in Aurora's life, in our life." Brianna's eyes filled with hope tears. "Then let's start here," she whispered, "with this moment. this small light. The smallest light, he almost smiled. It's always enough. And when he kissed her gentle and careful and full of hope, it felt like two broken pieces finally finding where they fit. Not perfectly, but real. True. Worth fighting for. 3 months later, on a bright June morning, the Hart Everett Safety Trust held its first public event. The community center was packed. Families who'd lost loved ones to workplace negligence, workers who'd been injured and silenced, advocates who'd fought for years to change labor laws, media covering what had become a national story about corporate accountability. Brianna stood backstage, her heart pounding, wearing a simple blue dress, her mother's favorite color. Grayson found her there, took her hand without a word. "You don't have to do this if you're not ready," he said gently. "Yes, I do." She squeezed his fingers. For her. For all of them. When they called her name, Brianna walked onto that stage as a completely different person than the shy girl who'd worked the night shift 6 months ago. She looked out at the crowd and began. "My mother's name was Margaret Hart." Her voice carried clearly, confidently. "And for 5 years, I thought her death didn't matter to anyone but me. I thought she was just another statistic. Another forgotten worker who died so a company could meet its quarterly targets." She paused, finding strength in the faces looking back at her. But I was wrong, because her story mattered to every single person who's ever clocked in for a shift and wondered if they'd make it home safely, to every family waiting by the door, to every company that has a choice every single day between profit and people. Her voice grew stronger, more inspirational. This foundation exists because two families refused to let grief be the end of the story. We chose to turn pain into purpose. We chose to believe that change is possible when we have the courage to demand it. And we believe with everything we have that every worker, every single person deserves dignity, safety, and the promise that their life matters more than any bottom line. The room erupted in applause that seemed to go on forever. Afterward, as people shared their own stories and the foundation officially launched its first initiatives, Aurora tugged on Brianna's sleeve. "Can I show you something?" She led Brianna to a quiet corner and pulled out a drawing from her backpack. Two stick figures holding hands under a sky full of stars. Labels in careful crayon, Mommy Emily and Margaret. "I drew them together," Aurora said seriously, "because they're both watching over us now, and I think they're really happy we found each other. Don't you think they're happy?" Brianna's throat closed completely. She pulled Aurora into a tight hug, breathing in her little girl scent of strawberry shampoo and crayons. "I think they're so proud of us, sweetheart. So incredibly proud." Grayson appeared beside them, wrapping his arms around both of them, his two favorite people in the entire world. "Ready to go home," he murmured, and for the first time, that word home didn't hurt either of them. That night in Grayson's kitchen that had become their kitchen, they made hot cocoa together. Aurora insisted on adding a ridiculous number of marshmallows. Grayson pretended to protest, but snuck in several extra when she wasn't looking, making Brianna laugh. Aurora grabbed her favorite book from the shelf, the one Emily used to read to her every night. "Can you read it, Brianna?" Brianna's hands trembled slightly as she took the worn pages, but Grayson sat beside her close enough that their shoulders touched, and that contact gave her courage. She began reading, her voice soft and warm. Aurora curled between them, her eyes growing heavy, completely secure in this new configuration of family. When the story ended, Aurora murmured sleepily, "We're a real team now, right? The three of us." "Right." Grayson whispered, his arm coming around Brianna's shoulders. Right, Brianna echoed, leaning into his warmth. Aurora smiled and drifted into dreams. Grayson looked at Brianna in the soft lamplight, his eyes full of everything he was still learning how to say out loud. She understood perfectly, because she felt it too. This wasn't a fairy tale ending with everything magically fixed. It was something better, something more honest. It was two people who'd lost everything, learning to build something new from the broken pieces. It was a little girl who would never forget her mother, but who now had someone else to hold her when the world felt too big. It was justice finally for people who'd been invisible for too long. And it was love, quiet, stubborn, fierce, growing in the exact space where grief used to live. Outside, the last light of day faded into gentle darkness. But inside, wrapped in warmth and hope and the promise of tomorrow, 3 broken hearts were learning to beat as one. Because even the smallest light can lead us out of any storm. Even the shyest girl can become the most inspirational force for change. And even 2 people who lost everything can still find each other on a snowy night in the space between sorrow and hope, where the most heartwarming kind of love quietly takes root and refuses to ever let go.